Have a quorum so we can get right to it. So,
You're not in an enviable position as
moving into item 1, which is introductions, and then chairman.
I had Mike.
I identify myself as Ed Jansen from Rollinsford, which most of you know.
Do you have a birth certificate?
The
long
version.
The long version?
Yeah, I'm talking to Obama how
Those
to
who asked for it.
find that. It's out in Strafford County, Adams County, Illinois, somewhere filed in the courthouse. But anyhow, so we'll go around here counterclockwise and introduce yourself and what town you are representing.
Stephen Jeffrey, Barrington.
Ed Comeau, Brookfield. Steve Pesci, University of New Hampshire in Durham.
Brad Nichols Coast. Glenn Davison, New Hampshire DOT.
Bob Jaff in Rochester.
Tom Crosby, Madbury.
Sandy Keynes, Rochester?
Cynthia Copeland, Strafford
Okay,
Regional.
back out.
Matt Sullivan, SRPC.
Mark
Ambrosi, SRPC.
That night, and I knew.
Dan Camara, SRPC.
Marilyn Barton, Strafford Regional Planning Commission.
Okay, thank everyone for getting out this icy morning. I got here late for the other meeting, but I got here, so the main thing is to get here safely. Okay, moving on to staff communications. Matt, Mark, and Marilyn have some things to enlighten us about.
Okay, I just want to talk to everyone really quickly. In this coming year, we're trying to figure out some ways to do a better job of marketing ourselves and reaching out to the public, let them know what we're doing here in the office. And we've thought of a couple ways to do that. I just want to take you quickly through that 4-pronged plan and then one specific way that I've already started working on in the new year here. The 4-pronged plan we've really focused on, and we met with our web designer on some of these things to discuss graphics and how we're going to do this really. The first of which is website updates. We're going to work on some of the sections that are of our website that we've forgotten about in recent years. If you've gotten a chance to maybe browse some of the deeper sections, some things need to be updated, and we're going to work on that. But one big thing is we want to put our plans on the website in an interactive form. Now on the website, what we're dealing with is you download a 60-page document, and you're forced to scroll through it, and you don't really have a great way of searching the document. Now what we're thinking of doing is maybe creating a plan website, basically, that you have a taskbar on the side, and you can search through the plan and work through it very easily, being able to easily find certain sections and read those one at a time. And we're not sure what that will look like yet, but it's something we're working on with her right now, and maybe something we might have going in the next 6 months or even the next 3 months or so. Second, Michelle and I are actually working on a joint economic development and broadband newsletter, and that will include project updates and also news in those 2 areas, and we hope to be sending that to our SEDS committee and our broadband stakeholder group, which we are currently working on recruiting still. The third of these is the SRPC blog, and we've discussed this with Julia, our web designer, and we're looking to use maybe a WordPress blog to post information about new topics in planning, trending topics, innovative practices, those types of things. Oftentimes, people in the office go to conferences or meetings, and we hear about new planning techniques, and we want to talk about them with our constituents and other agencies, and we want people to be reading about them. And one great way we can do that with graphics and any other media is with a blog, and we're gonna look at that in the coming months. The fourth of these is an SRPC Twitter, and some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may not. It's a trending, media outreach tool, a social media outreach tool. And I can take you through what I've done so far, but I just want to show you a few quick examples and explain why we might be doing this. So why Twitter? Twitter is all about interaction in my eyes, and I know some of you around the table may be involved with the Twitter. I know Rad has a Twitter himself and a Coastbus Twitter as well, which you can see on the bottom right there. And they're used for different reasons. Some of them are news, some of them are personal Twitters. Obviously, we all know about celebrities having Twitters. We read about it in the news sometimes, and we read about how that gets them into certain sticky situations. But so the first one here is WMUR, simple news site. They post news, they post images from time to time, but also they're able to link other people in their posts, so those people know that they're being promoted by WMUR. Coastbus, you use it for route updates, cancellations, those types of things. It's a good way to interact immediately with the people who are following you on Twitter. And if anyone has any questions about this, also after, I'm willing to talk about how this really works. Also, interagency interaction, DES included, as well as DOT. Pretty much any state agency has a Twitter as well for news and other updates. And we can follow these people and interact with them. For instance, last week we had a CSPA presentation from Jay Albee from DES about updates to the Comprehensive Shoreline Protection Act. And I posted a tweet about that, tagging DES, so they knew that we were interacting with them directly, and they are forced to read about it, essentially. It's a good way of self-promoting ourselves. This is a Twitter of a local planning department we all know, Dover, New Hampshire, obviously. This is run by Chris Parker. And this is just a simple example of what a model might look like for a planning Twitter. And he uses it, you may not be able to see it from there, but he uses it to post planning board meeting updates. They have some project naming contests. He uses it for that as well. He also uses it to post images of events and things that he sees in Dover that he'd like to inform the public about, his followers. So what I've done so far is just thrown together this quick this Twitter account, really a bare bones model here. We don't have any followers yet. We aren't following too many people. I just wanted to see how this would really look and how we could preserve our brand in a way, our colors, our image, what we're doing here. So it's likely you can't see it from where you are, but I've retweeted a couple of things, some interesting news stories, and also some reminders about meetings. I posted a reminder about our meeting today, actually, just to show you. It's the third item down there on that list. And we also have a couple followers. We have a GIS company following us right now. Rollinsford is actually following us, the town of Rollinsford. They signed on pretty quickly, actually, after I put it up. HUD is following us. All of these people are interested in what we're doing, and we have a unique opportunity here to kind of promote ourselves through this Twitter site. And that's really all I have. I just wanted to give you a quick update. This is something I've done the last week, but if you're interested, you can find us here. Very simple Twitter handle, Strafford RPC. And of course, you can contact me after the meeting if you'd like to, and I can tell you what I'm doing. If you have questions or comments, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. That's it.
Any questions?
I'd be happy to answer questions. Yeah, I'd love to. Ed.
Ed Comeau, how are you going to make the public aware that they can use the
Yeah, one thing we've been talking about with Julia is the nice thing about Twitter is you can use what are called widgets, and those widgets can be posted on any website. So our first thought was posting a Twitter feed on our website, and what you can do is it essentially appears as a sidebar application. So when you go to the SRPC website, you'll see our most recent tweets on the side. So that's one way that if you're visiting the website, you're automatically going to see that content right there. We haven't planned any announcements quite yet, but of course we'll have one on the website. We'll be doing what I'm doing here, hopefully at other meetings to inform our constituents about what's going on. But mostly that website feed is going to be our main notice to you that we're working on this right now.
The communication between all of us in the Strafford Regional Planning Commission using Twitter is good. The hard part is always trying to get the general public, and it seems like the only avenue we have to get back to the towns is through our meetings with the selectmen and in the town meetings. Is there any plans and any other advertising or anything to get the general public hooked into the Twitter account?
I'm not quite sure I can answer that question at this time. It's such a new effort, but I guess the best way I can answer that is with the Twitter itself. It's more about, unfortunately, it's more about the interagency and the connection to other people that are working at our level. As far as reaching the selectmen in a town itself, I suppose that would have to go through maybe a town Twitter maybe, or a personal Twitter of someone who is on the selectman board. I'm sure that some of our selectmen in our towns are on Twitter. It would be all about finding the right people that we can follow. But again, this Twitter is more intended for interacting with other people at this level, and not so much maybe our selectmen. But we'll see how we can do that, maybe looking forward. I really don't have a great way to answer that question now. But go ahead, Ryan.
From our experience at Post, it's about following people and organizations that would be able to link well with the type of news you're putting out or information you're putting out, and you follow them, they follow you, and you start building this network, which can grow pretty fast, quite honestly. So, but it's very different. There's not necessarily a real organized structure to it. Anybody can follow you. So, oftentimes you don't have a clue who they are. But it took me a while at Coast to say, okay, I'm comfortable with this new thing. I'm not sure I understand the business purpose, but after using it for a while, I really saw that it had an application and was valuable to us.
My suggestion is that you contact the towns and ask for a link or a Twitter link on their specific website. That way, when people visit the town website, they'll see that, oh, I can follow what's going on in Strafford Regional Planning Commission, and then they can click on it and join. Along with at our selectmen's meeting during the report phase, telling the people to check out Twitter.
Is there a way to use print media in the sense of, in terms of what already is your letterhead? You've got information at the top and information at the bottom. Is that another way of letting people know that there are blogs and that access to Twitter and all that kind of stuff?
We could absolutely do something like that. For right now, I think we kind of had to avoid that since this is a very elementary stage. But yeah, I think that would be a great way to really. Of course, a lot of people are accustomed to using print media, and we will definitely do something like that, talking about these different outreach tools we're developing.
But I'm assuming when you send this out electronically,
Right.
if you have it so that people could just click and go to wherever it is, that would be an easy way.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Other staff communications?
I just have one last.
Yeah.
Okay.
Following Ron Paul around, he actually has his own Twitter account. Basically, if he says anything, it goes in that Twitter, and I get something on my phone, and it goes to a video too, where you literally can post anything to it. So it's a very powerful tool, and it definitely should be used.
Thank you. I'm just really glad Matt was excited to do this, and we've had a lot of discussions and looked at different social media, and we opted for Twitter rather than Facebook because we think Twitter is the one that's going to do us best. It's about news and exchange of information, and that's what's important to us.
And like you said, you do have the option of directly following someone in the sense that you get every tweet that they tweet. And hopefully we can find some followers that will do that. Those would be really powerful connections to have, I think. I think that's a good point.
Never say hopefully, just make it happen.
We'll make it happen. And
we're going to be as excited as Ron Paul.
And a good point you made is about the media. You have an opportunity to link to any kind of content on there, whether it be video, picture. Documents can be difficult to do, but if you're hosting on our website, that will be easily done. So yeah, that diverse media availability is nice too.
Thank you very much for volunteering to do this.
That's great.
Okay, so moving on to the staff communications. Last week, Dan and I went to a workshop titled Planning for Operations. Glenn was there also. It was an interesting workshop. It was talking about planning strategies to basically maximize efficiency of our current transportation system, and also to begin putting in place and understanding performance measures in our transportation system to help us make those decisions about what are the best strategies for improving operations. And so the workshop was a lot of the focus was on, it wasn't on, laying down new concrete or expanding the roads in any way, but a lot of using ITS solutions, which is intelligent transportation system solutions, signal coordination, and getting a better idea of what you have and how you can make it better. It was a really good workshop. It was pretty interesting. We learned quite a bit. One of the challenges to really start implementing some of these ideas really comes from that baseline data. We don't have the best data layers yet and the best baseline data as a starting point at this point. So I think in the coming years, probably do quite a bit of work with DOT and communities to start understanding how we can grab that data and start utilizing it to set baseline figures and then set some goals for ourselves for moving forward and getting the most out of our transportation system. It was really about, I guess transit came into this also in a big way for maximizing the operations on the roadways. But it was a very interesting conference, and if anybody has any questions about it, we have some workbooks and definitely provide a little more information.
Yeah, just a quick example of some of the data that Mark's talking about. I'm pretty interested in it. Would like to talk to Rockingham and Nashua about it because they're currently doing it, but collecting time trial data, that they're calling it. It's really congestion data. It gives you an idea of how long it takes to get through an intersection. So it just involves some GPS work, getting timestamps on each of the GPS points as you go along and drive that stretch of roadway. So that type of data where you can get a real good feel for where the problem areas are and what time of day. So that's sort of the one piece of data that would be interesting in collecting.
It's Glenn from New Hampshire DOT. One thing I found that the training was really interesting was really bringing the planning and operations together, and integrating them together to solve problems. And it was about finding the common goals between the two and setting goals, objectives, and how do we measure those goals and objectives and make sure that we met them, and make sure that what we are doing is reaping the benefits of what we planned, and make sure that operations actually put them in place and they're still reaping the benefits. So overall, it was a really good training course. Glad to see Strafford attend it.
Question? No. Out here, for instance, on the Spalding Turnpike, there are some electronic signs saying 6 minutes to the toll gate, things like that. Are those being monitored by you folks, or who's posting those?
That's done by the New Hampshire DOT Traffic Management Center, TMC.
Okay, and do those change during the day?
Yes, we have full control of those right from Concord.
Oh, okay.
So we
Okay.
update them and change those as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at noontime, it's not 8 minutes, so when there's no traffic around, it's
No,
probably
those are
5
smart.
minutes or something?
Oh, yeah.
Those are smart work zones.
Yeah.
So they are changing. They are that's live data.
Thank you.
Steve.
Dan, one of the things over the years we've talked about is, and I guess with the model it could be done, but it wasn't really great, is trying to key into the general public things like real travel time over longer periods of time. So for example, what is the drive time from Durham to Newmarket today versus 10 years ago versus, so people would start to grasp the effect of some of our land use decisions. Like you could think Woodbury, Carter, and Portsmouth, what's the travel time now versus 10 years ago? So I would really encourage you to be thinking about ways that from here forward, or maybe retroactively, we could get some of those real travel time statistics so that people understand the implications of what we're talking about in terms of land use and transportation improvements, because I think that's where those of us who've been here quite a few years see the biggest change. Is no matter what is built, highway capacity-wise, the land use is affecting the traffic. More lights, now takes 15 minutes to get from A to B instead of 10. And I think that would have some real tie-in to this concept of bringing planning and transportation system investments into a context for the public.
I completely agree. I think that's, me and Mark talk about it all the time, access management, where, big business might be going in and we might be doing a before and after assessment of turning movements or traffic count volumes. Now we could add in that extra layer of
And those things are what
time.
we've usually tracked, but I would suggest what will resonate with people better is average travel speed or point-to-point time. I mean, turning movements, volume.
Yep.
I mean, if you say to someone, the average travel speed on Woodbury Avenue corridor has dropped 8 miles per hour in the past 15 years, that means something to people.
So moving ahead, that's the goal. But yeah, we got to get that baseline data first. Right now, it just does not exist. So.
Sure, to follow up on that, Glenn, you were talking just a moment ago about sort of trying to make sure that the theory actually gets into practice.
Yes.
Is there in terms of all of the projects throughout the state? I mean, we deal with these revisions to the 10-year plan, and I mean, there's millions of dollars spent. Is there any place where people on a regular basis go back and say, this is the before and this is the after, to see whether or not, again, the goal always is to fix some sort of problem. I mean, otherwise, why spend the money? But is there ever any sort of methodical way of going back and seeing how successful we've really been at solving whatever the problem was?
That's a great question, and that's my area of interest in the DOT right now. In the past, the answer is no, we haven't. We built it. We know we weren't coming back for 10, 20 years. Why bother looking back, the big part, I think, the part of this conference is that we would build it and we'd let operations take care of it after that. But moving forward, I know we do that with safety, the HSIP. One of the requirements is that we look at performance measures. So we say we're going to build this. This is what we expect out of it, and this is the results we'd like to see 5, 10 years out in the future, and then we kind of track it. And then we are doing that for HSIP. But moving forward, the department, we are trying to look at different performance measures and say, what are we doing today? What's our goal of the project? And then go back and measure it. And some things we are working on, one of our big challenges is, I think Dan was bringing it up, is that we need our base data. So we need good data to measure it.
Right.
And that's the things that we're trying to really work on is getting good crash data, so we can measure what the safety improvement, what's the crash rate today, so level of safety, what it will be in the future. What's our level of service today? What do we plan to get out of the project, and then measure it and see if we met our goals. One of the big things coming up with MAP 21, that's a new reauthorization proposal, it's all performance-based. So they're saying is that when you design a project, tell us, why you're designing it, what you expect out of it, and then justify the project by data, saying that, you have a poor level of service here, we're going to do improvements in this area, we expect to get this out of it, and then we will be required to measure it. So one of our big challenges going forward is collecting the data for the baseline, as well as keep collecting that data so we can measure it in the future. But that's where we're all headed, and I think it's a great approach.
I think you see some.
Yeah. Just as a follow-up question, I guess I think of a model as advertising. So a company advertises a particular way, and they see whether or not there's an increase in sales, but the time frame there is relatively short. A lot of the things we're talking about the Spalding Turnpike improvements have taken, multiple years, and a lot of other things have happened at the same time. And so I guess part of my question is there technology, or is there a philosophy, or is there a sort of a line of thought or something that says, I think it's important to do it, but I'm also thinking from a logistical standpoint how complicated it would be, because somebody could say, the road, it takes 8 more minutes to get from point A to point B, but that could be due to 15 different things in differing, and how do you measure effectively? I want to spend time measuring if it's effective and it gives us the information we want, but there may be some things that are just sort of like chaos or something. There's just not ways of measuring it. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to Steve's comment, is that, really is making people aware of land use and transportation, because that's where we get bogged down. We can measure what's on the system today, we can measure what's on the system in the future,
Right.
but making people aware that, this is the whole thing about land use transportation and getting DOT to work with communities, because, for example, what communities do with their land use and transportation can affect the transportation system, the state system, as well as the state system can affect the municipalities. But working together and really considering land use and transportation as one, we can maybe avoid some of those. And then we're working towards that, and there's always going to be factors like that, but out of our control. But still, we're trying to make a goal of reaching certain performance measures. And one thing, I don't know if it's made public yet, but the DOT has put a balanced scorecard together. And one thing we looked at is where we are today, what our goals are, and looking at trends of where we think we're going to be looking out. And right now we're looking at 2016, looking 4 years out, and trying to measure all this. Where we are today, where we want to be in 2016, and what the trend is with the current budget. We're trying to make some arguments that we want to be here, but we're really going downhill. And really, a lot of our efforts now is not to get to the ideal level, but is to minimize how fast we're going downhill. We're trying to reduce the slope negative impacts.
I think you see with a lot of the projects recently, you can see it right out on the Spalding. DOT's done a really good job of putting in the IPS systems, the cameras, all the other traffic counters, all the other stuff that's necessary to get that baseline data. And I think one of the big challenges has been, in this short period of time, the last 10 years pretty much, is when we've gotten to the point technologically that we have the networks that are capable of handling all the data, but we also have to get all the equipment out there that can measure all the data, and then we also need to get a place where the data can be analyzed and then get it out to communities. So I think that's a big push right now, and a lot of the funding is being, a bigger percentage of the funding is being spent on these ITS systems that are going to create that capability in the future, and also, impact operations, how well our systems are flowing, and safety, so we understand, right where the accident is, where the accidents happen, how to deal with those kinds of things. But I think it's at least another 5 or 10 years out before we have equipment in place to really have a good understanding of where we are, and then we can really start making some more intelligent decisions, I think, with our funding, because we have some data to back it up.
Are we able to keep up with the projection? Because I don't, it seems to me, and I may be all wet on this thing, but it seems to me every time you have a transportation enhancement, you get more people moving further out or taking advantage of that transportation,
Yes.
no matter what kind of system it is. So, it doesn't seem to me there's ever a catch-up.
It can become a vicious cycle. Where 93, back when population was growing, is that you get your congestion now, you make it wider, it's congestion goes down, it's easier to travel. More business will start coming because it's easier to travel. More cars come, you back in the congestion cycle again. But this is where the alternative modes of transportation, we're going to have to rely on public transportation. We can't expand forever, and this is where we really need to be thinking about better transit, rail, alternative modes of transportation like walking, and that's where the big push for these multimodal systems are coming in, because you're right, it's a vicious cycle, and somehow we've got to figure out how to break it.
It's been shown
Focus on the alternatives.
capacity expansion fills up usually within 10 years, no matter what you do or where it is, because it gives people the ability to use the road.
If it's easy to travel, more people will come, more business will come because it's easy to get there now, and then you get back in congestion again.
The country as a whole, probably, I'm going to say, if you want a milestone or starting point, Katrina and Rita. What we saw in the land-based evacuation attempts there, it's going to take another 10 or 15 or 20 years to correct that. But it was since that time, that nationally we have begun to recognize that roads are not the answer. And I think that's what we're all saying in different ways, but it has to be said. Roads are not the answer. They're part of the answer. And this state was no more or less guilty than any other state, I'd say as late as 2005. And again, just a rough. That mindset was roads, 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 roads. That's changing as we speak, although we may not see the results. And a lot of what we're hearing here today is looking at all those issues, addressing all those issues. We're a long ways from solving those. I don't know if I shared, there was a Rockefeller Pew report. And again, I hate to pick on the state because I know it's changing, but historically, we were the 18th worst state in how we spent our transportation dollars. And that's this year's Pew report. But again, that's looking backwards. If you look at what the state's doing now, if you look at ITS, I gave an example, the difference between the two PCR shows. ITS made a huge difference, just as one small example. So we're just right now beginning to see the efforts, and ITS is so new. A year and a half ago, I really